అని చెప్పిండు, పర్పెండిక్యులర్ ఫ్లోస్ అని చెప్పిండు. మనకి ఏం చెప్పలే మరి, అది ఈసారి ఉంటదేమో మరి.
మనకి పూర్ణ ఫ్లూయిడ్స్ అని చెప్పి.
Okay, hello. Can you hear me? Hi. So, Nischal and Purnachandra, you guys were talking, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, how are you all?
Fine.
So, how have you managed during this COVID situation? It's really difficult. Chalo, anyway, we'll talk a little bit more during the class. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Since it's the first day, I'm going to request if some of you can. I'm going to do it first. Some of you can turn on your cameras. I just want to see some faces here. I mean, I've not seen anybody for such a long time. I'm beginning to forget your faces. So if you can, just turn on your camera, okay, so that I can at least see you. Oh, a bit too high. Nice to see you. Okay. Okay, nobody else wants to turn on their camera, huh? Hey, Purnachandra. Nice. So are you like lying down or something?
No.
It's okay. However you learn.
Fine.
Good. Yeah, this is such a strange situation that we are all in right now. It's really hard to understand what to do. And, Okay, so let's just wait for a couple of minutes. We have 5 people in the class. Nischal, Nikhil, Ajay, Bittu and Purnachandra. I'm hearing a... okay, it's gone now. Bittu, I think there's a lot of background noise from your... yeah, okay.
What were you doing all these days, sir?
Good question. What was I doing? Well, mostly I was focusing on research. We actually managed to submit a couple of papers, actually 3 papers. My PhD student and I. So we submitted 2 plus 1 more paper, which was just before the lockdown we had submitted. So that's what I was up to. And then, of course, schools are closed. My kids are at home. It's a big challenge. Especially, I mean, my kids are like 3 years old, 7 years old. So they are, they require constant attention. So a lot of my time went in looking after them, me and my wife. So yeah, it was tough. I mean, it is tough. We're just hoping that schools reopen quickly so my kids can go off to school. yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. Okay, so we have 9 people in the class. So, those of you who can, just turn on your camera for a bit so I can see your faces. I mean, I'm worried that I might forget what you guys look like. I've already seen Bittu and Purnachandar and a couple of others. Okay, Ajay, hi. Nice to see you.
Hi, sir.
Yeah. If you want to, you can turn on your camera. I'm not saying you have to. If you want to, you can. Just to kind of refresh my memory. And it's nice to see somebody finally. Otherwise, it's pretty difficult, right? And this is what I'm planning to do throughout the semester. I'm going to keep my camera on so you can see both the presentation and my face. So if whoever in the class can keep their camera on, it'll help me just to get some visual feedback. Otherwise it becomes a little bit challenging. So yeah, let's see how many people are in. We have 13 students in. Okay, let's maybe wait for a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, of course today we are not going to get into too much technical stuff. We'll just quickly go over the basics, and then actually what I want to do is I want to hear from all of you how you've been doing these last 3 or 4 months, and what we can do to make this semester go off in a very smooth manner. Okay, so I want to hear from you. So I'll quickly go through. I have some slides, usual thing that I do on my first class. I explain the course, I explain the how the grading will be done and all that. So I'll not get into too much of the specifics. So we will just go over the course schedule and the content and so on. So all right, okay, I think we have about 15-16 people in the class, so let's get started. Okay, one second. Okay. All right, okay, so that's the course that we are going to be going through this semester, Water Resources Engineering, CE 3103. All right, so this first class, we are just going to learn how this course is going to be organized, how will you be evaluated, what kind of grades, how the grades will be decided and so on. Basic stuff, same as what we did last time. Okay, and then I'll get into a little bit about the very name of the course, Water Resources Engineering, right? So we'll talk about that. The name is implying that we are going to look at water as a resource, right? We've already had one course in the previous semester where we looked at water, but we looked at it from a different perspective. So this semester, we are going to look at it from the point of view of water being a resource. Okay, so that's why the very name of the course is different from what we had last time, obviously. Okay, and then I'll give a very quick introduction to water resources, the hydrologic cycle and its components, precipitation, evaporation, runoff, and so on. Okay, so that's going to be the content of today's lecture. I'll try to finish maybe in the next 15-20 minutes, and the rest of the time I'm going to listen to you guys. I want to hear from you how the last 3-4 months have been and what you think we should do in the next 3 or 4 months for this rest of the semester. Okay, because I think it's very, very important that we have set up this two-way communication right from the very beginning. So this is an unusual situation. We've not had this before. How to have an entire class running through only the online mode. So naturally it's going to be a challenge. I'm not promising you that it'll be perfect, but we will make every attempt to make it as fruitful as possible for as many people, right? That's the best we can do. All right, but I think it's going to work out well. I have some ideas. I want to hear from you. All right, so let's first get the timetable straightened out. Okay, so the timetable, we have the A slot on Monday mornings from 9 to 9:50. That's the one right now. Tuesdays, we have 2 slots, one from 11 to 12 and one from 2 to 3. This 2 to 3 slot, I'm not going to engage you guys during that time. Okay. It's right. Instead of engaging you, what I'll do is every week I will give a reading assignment. Okay. I'll probably take a few pages from a textbook, scan it or take a photo or whatever, make a PDF and send it out to you. So every week you will have a reading assignment. Okay. So that reading assignment, you're expected to spend about an hour reading that. Okay. So that takes care of that 2 to 3 slot on Tuesday afternoons. Okay. I don't want to, have 4 lectures all over the week. It becomes too much of, one-way communication. It should be more of, you go and study something on your own and then you come back and ask me questions, right? It's flexible. Okay. Suppose I feel later on that maybe it'll be a good idea to have those classes also. We will go back and do that. Okay. If I feel the need to do it, but as of now, my plan is to engage you for 3 hours and give you 1 hour of about 1 hour. Maybe it could be a little bit more. Some weeks it could be a little bit less. Some weeks. Okay. Around 1 hour of reading every week. Okay. So that is some kind of self-study. Okay. So that is what the plan is. Okay. So Tuesday, 11 to 12, tomorrow, that is, we'll have the class. The afternoon 2 to 3 slot, we'll leave that alone. Okay. And then again, we meet on Thursdays at 10 o'clock, 10 to 10:50. Okay. So that's the timetable. So just to, just so you're aware, this afternoon slot on Tuesdays from 2 to 2:50 or 2 to 3, most likely I'll not engage it. That doesn't mean that if I feel that later on in the semester, I want to take a few lectures from 2 to 3, I might do that depending on how we are progressing and so on. But as of now, this is the plan. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Right. So the textbooks for this course, we are going to be primarily using 2 textbooks. The first one is Applied Hydrology. Okay. So this textbook, see right now, again, there's another challenge that you're not going to have access to the library, right? So therefore we need to come up with a way to, to give you access to these textbooks. This Applied Hydrology, to the best of my knowledge, is not available online. You guys can find out better. If you find that, well, technically speaking, if you find one online that's a pirated version, I don't want to get into that. You do whatever you want. Okay. I'm not going to suggest that to you. The next textbook that we'll be using is Engineering Hydrology by K. Subramania. He was a professor at IIT Kanpur, retired. So this is a very good textbook. Both of these textbooks are excellent. Okay. Both of them are, we'll be using both of them extensively. So this Engineering Hydrology is from McGraw-Hill, and the ebook for this Engineering Hydrology book is available on McGraw-Hill's website. You must have received an email from our librarian, what's his name? Shamir. So he had sent out an email giving us the list of books that are available as ebooks from McGraw-Hill's website, right? So you'll have to go through, you have to log in or whatever, and this textbook, you should be able to access it through McGraw-Hill's ebook website. Okay. So just go back to your email and look for an email from Shamir. Okay. So you should be able to get that. In case you have trouble, please contact me or contact Shamir, and we'll try to, make it available to you. In any case, if necessary, wherever necessary, I will, take photos and make a PDF of portions of these books and make them available to you. If I want to give you reading assignments, for example, I may take a couple of pages from this book or from this book, scan them or whatever, and assign them on your Google Classroom. Okay, so we are going to be using Google Classroom this semester. You must have received the email that I sent out yesterday. So that email, the Google Classroom, whatever material, whether it is the YouTube videos or whether it is some reading material, or in terms of an assignment or a quiz, surprise quiz, or whatever it is, everything will be done through the Google Classroom. So our communication throughout the semester will be through the Google Classroom, for which you've already received the details. Okay, and there's a couple of other books that you might also have access to. Hydrology and Water Resources Engineering. This is by Garg, and then one more, Water Resources Engineering by Verbs and James. Okay. Now the good thing is, both of these books, if you want to buy them, if you want to buy either one of them or both of them, they're not very expensive. If you want to have a physical copy, this engineering hydrology book is about 500 rupees on Amazon. Okay, so I just checked the price on Amazon. I think it's 494 or something like that, and you'll get it maybe within a couple of weeks if you order it today, right? So depending on where you are, of course, if you're living in a big city, you might receive it quickly. So this is about 500 rupees. Not terrible, right? Imagine this entire semester, you're going to be staying at home. I think this 500 rupees is not a bad way to spend your money. It's a good book. Okay. The other book, Applied Hydrology, is a little bit more expensive. I think around 700 rupees. Still not too bad. Okay. This is also available on Amazon. And these two books, if you order them, you will get them in about 2 weeks, right? Depending on which part of India you're in. Okay. So that's as far as the books are concerned. Okay. Now, the evaluation for this semester, what we're going to do is we are going to have a final exam, which will be for 40% of the grade. We'll have a midterm exam, which will be for 30% of the grade, right? So that's 30 plus 40, 70%. And then the rest of it is going to be continuous assessment, continuous evaluation throughout the semester, which will involve 3 components. Okay. So as you can see, so the total works out to about 30%, of which we'll have about equal weightage to 3 components. One will be class participation / attendance, which means I'm expecting that you come to all the classes, right? As usual, we'll have our questions. I mean, you've all seen this before. Whether it is a live class or an online class, we always have question and answer. I'll ask somebody at random, and I'm expecting you to participate in the class. So that will count for, let's say, 5 to 10% of that 30%. And then we'll also have some surprise quizzes. Last time our surprise quizzes were worth 20%, but given that this time it's online, I'm going to lower it to maybe 10%. Okay, so surprise quizzes will be about 10%. I'm not giving you the the hard. This 30% is the overall. Okay, I'm not telling you how much is for participation, how much is for surprise, and how much is for mini projects. Okay, I'll leave that to my judgment. I'll take care of that. Okay, so approximately it'll be 10 10 10, but if the projects becomes 15 and participation becomes 5, don't be surprised. Okay, obviously project should get a little bit more weightage, right? So projects might probably get 15%, surprise quiz might get 10%, and participation or attendance will get about 5%. Okay, so that's how the course will be evaluated. So these are the different ways in which your grade is going to be calculated. All right, and then as for the grade itself, any questions so far? Anybody?
No, sir.
Okay, so you'll have to unmute yourself and ask questions if you do have any questions.
Sir, how are the midterm exam and final exam conducted?
Good question. So as of now, the plan is to use this an online proctoring software or whatever it's called. I think it's called Talent Sprint. This was used for the previous, no, not the previous. So the students who were graduating this year, their exams were conducted online through this Talent Sprint online proctoring software. Okay, so basically you install that on your laptop or whatever, and then it ensures that only the exam will be visible. You cannot toggle between windows. You can't go to some other window. Your camera will be on all the time. So we'll be watching from here, making sure you're not looking here and there. You're only looking at the screen, right? So you'll write it down on a piece of paper, right? And then take a photo of it and upload it to that website. And there'll be, it'll be monitoring your activity. So you can't obviously chat with your friends while the exam is happening and so on. That will be for the midterm and the final exam. Okay. The surprise quizzes, I'm going to assume that you're all going to be honorable and nobody is going to do any cheating. It will be done on the spot in the class, but I will not, I have no way of, checking if all of you are being honest or not. I'm going to assume you're all being honest, and I think it's a good assumption to make. So please do not disappoint me. All right. So that's how the surprise quizzes are going to work. Okay. Is that okay? Aditya, right?
Raza, yes sir.
Oh, it was Ayub. Okay, Raza. All right, I thought it was Aditya. Okay, so that's as far as the evaluation is concerned. Okay, so then the grades. This is similar to last semester. Of course, you didn't get the letter grades, but this is the same grade system that I usually use always. 90 to 100 is S, and so on. Okay, it's a fairly straightforward way of grading. Okay, and of course, this is something that I again mentioned last time, but obviously because we didn't conduct a final exam, we just assigned pass fail. You never had to go through this. So basically what this ensures is that, let us say at the end of the semester you've got an 85. Okay, according to this scheme, the minimum grade you will get is an A, right? 85 means you're in the 80 to 89 bracket, which means you'll get an A, right? But that's the minimum grade you'll get. You may get an S if 85 is the highest mark in the class, right? If nobody else has got more than 85, then it is possible that 85 itself will become S, and then I'll appropriately everybody else will get shifted, right? So that is the way I normally do it. It's been working well. I've been doing this for 4 years now, so it works well. All right. So if you get more than an 80, you should be assured that you will at least get an A. Maybe you'll get an S. Okay. So that's how the grades work. Okay. And then of course, you don't have to worry about this. I mean, I'm almost confident that all of you will do well. All of you will pass. But if you get less than a 40, that is considered to be a U grade, or you're considered to have failed. We'll not talk more about that. That again depends, right? If the highest in the class is 80, then naturally everything will move down by about 10 marks. So then this pass mark might become 30. I'm just saying, okay, you have no control over how much the highest mark getter will get. Okay, so first of all, don't worry about it. I'm sure all of you are going to do well. Nobody's going to be close to failing or whatever. But just as a matter of routine, I'm just telling you that 40 is the normal pass mark that I expect. Okay, assuming everybody performs, like they usually do, then I'm assuming that everybody or whoever gets above 40 will be considered to have passed. Okay, so that's as far as the grades are concerned. Okay, so now we are going to get into the subject itself, right? So the name of the course, as you've seen, is Water Resources Engineering, right? So it implies that water somehow is a resource. Now everybody knows that water is a resource, right? But yes, go ahead.
What kind of mini projects you are doing? I mean,
what kind of mini projects? So see, last year I conducted mini projects. Okay, let me just go back to that slide. Okay, so here you see these mini projects. Mini projects, we will see. Fortunately, we happen to be living in we are located in the state of Andhra Pradesh, where the state government of Andhra Pradesh collects a lot of data about weather, rainfall, water levels, and so on. They collect it and they make it available online, right? So a lot of the ground data relating to rainfall, relating to soil moisture, relating to water levels, groundwater levels, right? Relating to humidity, right? All of this data is available online through the Andhra Pradesh government's website. So now what I do is, as part of my research, I download all this data. Every day I go online, I have written a code, or my student has written a code, which goes online every day and downloads data from these websites. Okay, so I have a huge database of data pertaining to groundwater levels or rainfall and so on, right? So this real data we'll be using for our mini projects. Okay, so for example, if you look at the distribution of rainfall in Andhra Pradesh, okay, so you have different locations. for example, in the city of Tirupati, we have about 2 or 3 different locations where rainfall is measured. Okay, so for example, you may have a rainfall of 2 centimeters at the Tirupati airport, and in some other part of Tirupati, you may have had 1.5 centimeters of rainfall, and so on, right? So you have this for the entire state of Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so once you have this, you can do a lot of analysis with it. Okay, which we'll learn in the as we go on with the rest of the semester. For each of these, if you take rainfall, for example, you can take the real data and do some analysis with it. Okay, we'll learn what kind of analysis we'll do. But for now, I'll just tell you in a brief way that these mini projects will deal with applying whatever concepts you learn in the class. Okay, whatever concepts you learn in the class, you will apply it to solve some problems with real data. Okay, all right. So that is the scope of these projects, and the objective of these projects. All of these little projects will be looking at a specific a process that drives the water cycle. Like the hydrologic cycle has so many different components. Rainfall is one component, evaporation is one component, right? Infiltration into the ground, that's another component. You have runoff running on the so after you have a rainfall event, you will see flooding happening in the on the streets or on the highways and so on, right? So that's runoff, right? So that is also another component. Our objective is, through this course, is to evaluate what the different first of all understand these different processes that drive the hydrologic cycle, and to quantify them, right? So if I know that I received 5 centimeters of rainfall, how much runoff will it generate? How much water will percolate into the ground? How much the water table will rise because of that, right? So we are trying to understand all of those things. Okay, so that is the objective of this course, and this mini project will help you understand all of those theory concepts that you learn in the class with real data, right? I am not stopping you from using data from some other state if you want. Okay, I will be making available data for the state of Andhra Pradesh. If, for example, you are from Maharashtra, okay, and you are able to find data for the state of Maharashtra online, you can use that data also for your work. If you find data from America, Australia, Africa, wherever, you can use whatever data you have to do the same analysis, right? So the objective is to use real data to try to understand some of these processes. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So yeah, let's get back to water as a resource. So that's the very title of the course, Water Resources Engineering. Now, if you remember, in the previous semester, again, we studied about water, right? We studied about water in the course called Fluid Mechanics and Hydraulics. Now, why are we again studying about water? When we've already studied about water, what is there to what more is left to study? That might be a question that you may have. The fundamental difference between what we did last semester and what we're going to do this semester is that in the last semester, we understood the physics of water that governs the, I mean, although I say fluids, we looked predominantly at water, right? So the objective of the previous course was to understand the physics, right? So the very word mechanics indicates that we are interested in the way it behaves when it, when some force is applied on it, or when it is at rest or in motion and so on, right? So we looked at it from different perspectives. We looked at fluids at rest, we looked at fluids in motion, we looked at fluids in pipes, we looked at fluids in channels, and so on, right? So we were trying to understand how the fluid behaves, right? That is what our objective was in the previous semester. Now, in this semester, we are going to look at water as a resource, right? So now, if I ask you the question, is water a resource? How is water a resource? Can anybody tell me, how is water a resource? In what sense is water a resource? Anybody?
It is responsible for sustaining the life of almost all the living organisms.
Okay. It is responsible for sustaining all living organisms. Okay. Is air a resource? What is that?
Sir, we have water in a limited quantity. That is
Ah.
why we call it a resource.
Okay. 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 So in that context, is air a resource? So
No.
oh, it's not a resource. Okay. What about maybe I'll qualify it. Is clean air a resource?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? Okay. So the point that I'm trying to make is that water is a resource because we use it for different purposes, whether it is for irrigation, whether it is for drinking or bathing or washing and so on, or whether it is for an industry, right? In all of these different activities, human activities that human beings engage in, right? All of these are human activities, right? For all of these, water is required. Without water, you can't do any of these, right? So therefore, water is a resource. Now, the other thing is, when we talk about resources, typically we say petroleum is a resource, or iron ore is a resource, and so on. Now, petroleum, obviously, petroleum is not available everywhere, right? In some regions, you drill a well, you go deep, and then you find petroleum. In some region, you you go into a mine, you're able to find gold, or you're able to find iron or aluminum or copper or whatever it is, right? So the context in which we say water is a resource is also that it varies in quantity and quality, right? Different regions have different quantities of water, right? Some regions receive a lot of water as rainfall. Some other regions receive less water as rainfall. I also mentioned quality over here in this definition, or in this this point that I'm saying. It also varies in quality, right? Although we won't be looking at quality much in this semester, we will look predominantly at quantity. Quality is an important parameter, right? Let us say you're living next to the coast. Okay, you're living next to the coast, and you drill a well to extract water for your domestic consumption. Okay, you keep pumping water, you keep pumping water. If you keep pumping beyond a certain limit, at some point the salt water will start to enter in, and then your well may be providing you salty water, right? Now, is salty water a resource that you can use directly for your cooking or for bathing or for cleaning or whatever? You don't want salty water, right? So therefore, the quality of water is also important. We will not look at it much in this semester, but I'm telling you, just you need to understand that depending on where you are, if you're right next to the coast, there is a limit on how much you can pump without inducing water from the ocean to come into the aquifer and get into your groundwater, right? So there's a nature maintains a balance between fresh water and salt water. So if you pump too much fresh water out, you end up creating a gradient, right? And then which causes salt water to come into the groundwater aquifers. Okay, so it varies in quantity and quality. We will not look at quality much. We'll look at quantity alone this semester. Okay, and it also is distributed spatially and temporally, right? This is very important. Let us say I'm in the city of Bombay. Okay, Bombay receives almost 1,500 millimeters of rainfall every year, right? A lot of rainfall. But all that rainfall happens from June to maybe September, October. June, July, August, September, at most October. Okay, the rest of the year you don't get much rainfall if you're living in Bombay, right? So there, if you only rely on rainwater, for example, okay, between June and September, October, there's no problem because you keep getting rainfall all the time and you can use it as a resource, no issues. But what about the month of May? What about the month of March, April, when there's no rainfall? What do you do for your survival? Right? You have to somehow store that water that you received during those monsoon months so that you can use it when you don't get the water, when you don't get rainfall, right? So it's, although you get a lot of water, it's not equally distributed throughout the year. It is concentrated in a certain few months of the year, right? So it's temporally. Temporally means in time. In time, it's distributed. It's not evenly distributed. Rather, I should say in time it is unevenly distributed. You receive it for a short duration, and for a long duration you don't receive any rainfall, right? So therefore you have to come up with some way of saving that resource so that you can use it when there's no rain, right? So that is the context in which you're saying water is a resource. Okay, then now I've spoken so much about how water is a resource. Now what are some of the processes that keep water in circulation? Can you identify any of the processes that keep water in circulation? Anybody? Let me call somebody out. Apurva, can you please unmute yourself?
So I can say water cycle is the process.
Okay, water cycle is the entire thing. What are the different components in the water cycle? Can you name one or two components?
Like component name or like rain, evaporation or the
rain is a component of the hydrologic cycle, right?
Yeah, and evaporation.
Correct. Evaporation. All right, thank you. Somebody else. Okay, Yashwanti. Can you please unmute yourself? Okay, so Apurv mentioned rainfall and evaporation. Are there any other processes of the hydrologic cycle that you can think of?
Evaporation, condensation.
Okay. Condensation, all right. Evaporation is already mentioned. Condensation, anything else? Percolation, all right.
Into the soil.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Neeraj. Now we are getting into more and more details, right? Evaporation, precipitation are all easy. Neeraj, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you tell us any other process that you can think about that keeps water in circulation?
Sorry, sir.
Sorry. Okay. So, which city do you live in, or where are you from?
Rajasthan.
Oh, Rajasthan. I was hoping you would be somewhere where there's a. Okay, I'm sure there's a river in Rajasthan, right? Are there any rivers near your house, near your place?
No, sir.
No rivers. Okay, imagine for a minute that you're living in Kanpur, or you're living in, let's say Kanpur or Delhi or whatever. Okay.
Okay.
So what's the first thing that comes to your mind if I say any of these cities? Delhi, Kanpur, Allahabad, Calcutta, Patna, Varanasi. What are you reminded of?
Near to the river Yamuna, Ganga.
Yeah. Very good. So right. So the river is flowing all the time. Where is that water going? The river water ends up where?
To sea.
To the sea, right? Yes. So from the sea, you have water evaporating, becoming clouds, and then coming back down as rainfall.
Yes, sir.
Right? So evaporation is one of the processes that takes water out of the sea. Precipitation is a process, or rainfall is a process that brings the water back down to the earth, from the clouds back onto the surface of the earth. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now this this river flowing, or the stream flow, is taking water back to the sea, right? So it's a cycle, right? We all have heard of the hydrologic cycle. So a river flowing, a flowing river, or what we call stream flow. Okay, thank you, Neeraj. Okay, stream flow is a process that is taking water back to the sea, right? So that's the idea of the hydrologic cycle, right? So that's another process that keeps water in circulation. So I'll just list a few of them, right? So you have rainfall, you have evaporation, there's infiltration, there's runoff. Runoff is basically water that runs off the surface of the land surface. Okay, so basically you can think of rivers as carrying the runoff, right? And then you have groundwater flow, right? All of these are different. I've just listed a few processes. there are at least another 4 or 5 more. We'll talk about them in detail a little bit later. So that these are all the different processes that keep water in circulation. Okay, and this is what we are going to look at for the rest of the semester. All right. Okay, so now just to give you a perspective of the total amount of water that's available on the planet for our use. Okay, so if you look at all the water that's available on the planet, 97% of it is salt water. It's in the oceans. Okay, so just imagine what that means. 97% of all the water that's on the planet is salt water, not usable. Right? Only 3% of the water available on the planet is fresh water, which can be used by us for our purposes. Right? Now I'm going to zoom into this 3%, and this is something that you may not be aware of. This 3%, very small portion of the total water available, this 3% of which almost 70% is in the ice caps and glaciers, right? You know what the ice caps are, the North Pole and the South Pole, right? And the glaciers and all that, which are basically in the form of snow, right? Out of that 3%, which is such a small portion of the total amount of water, almost 70% is locked up in these ice caps and glaciers. Again, it's not directly usable by us, right? And about 30% is in the form of groundwater. Okay. And then a small portion, about 0.3% is surface water. And another 0.9% is other water. When I say other water, it could mean soil moisture. It could mean humidity in the air and so on, right? So humidity in the air is also water, right? It's fresh water. So that 0.9% is all the other stuff. Soil is wet, right? So that's also included in this other. Okay. So now you see all these big rivers and big lakes that you see, which are carrying fresh water, is only 0.3% of the total water that's available. You think the Ganga is a mighty river, right? You think all of these huge rivers, Nile, Ganga, right? All massive rivers all over the world. You put them all together, it only counts for 0.3% of the fresh water. The fresh water itself is only 3% of the total water. Of that 3%, only 0.3% of 3%. So you imagine how small it is, right? 0.3% of that 3% is all these rivers and lakes that you see, right? The hidden water, the invisible water that you don't see, groundwater, is 30% of all the fresh water in the on the planet. Okay, so this just gives you an idea of how vast the numbers are, right? So what you see is only 0.3% of 3%, right, of the total. But what you don't see is this massive source of water, which is groundwater, for example, 30%. Okay, and so on. Now, even within this 0.3% of surface water, there's a further classification. I'll just show you. It's very interesting, right? Out of these 0.3%, only 2% is in the rivers. 87% is in the lakes. Okay, so all these different lakes that you see all over the world carry 87% of the surface water. Okay, or of the fresh surface water, right, and so on. So don't worry about what is that.
What is a lake?
What? Okay, so I don't understand the question. What do you mean? What is lakes? Are you telling me you don't know what a lake
What is lake? Really, I don't know, sir.
Okay, so have you been? Okay, so how about this? Okay, you're asking me what a lake is. A lake is basically a surface water body that is enclosed on all sides by land. That's the only way I can think of it, of calling it, which is not flowing. It's a stagnant surface water body which is enclosed on all sides by land. Is that okay? It's kind of like the opposite of an island, right? You know an island, right?
Yes, sir.
An island is a land. One second. Island is a land mass surrounded on all sides by water. Okay, and the island is typically it's not considered to be moving. It's stationary. Similarly, if I have land on all sides and in between I have some water, which is stationary, not moving, and that is what we typically call a lake. Yes, you had something to say.
So does ponds and reservoirs come under lakes?
Yeah. You can say a pond or a reservoir comes under lake. Yes.
Sir, is Red Sea a lake?
Red Sea is a lake. Yes. Oh no, wait a second. Red Sea is not enclosed on all sides by water. Caspian Sea is a lake.
Arabian Sea?
Arabian Sea is
No.
not a lake. Arabian Sea is not a lake. It's not
Sir,
surrounded
then
on
why
all
is it
sides by
named
land.
sea, sir? If it is no, sir. If Caspian Sea is a
That's a good
lake,
question.
then why is it named sea? That's
To the best of my knowledge, Caspian Sea is surrounded on all sides by land. Okay, and the reason it's called the sea is because it's so huge. Okay, now I'm going to give you a counter example to this. Okay, so out of these 87%, which is lakes, I'm going to 24% of the water is in what is called the Great Lakes. How many of you have heard this? This phrase Great Lakes? Any idea what the Great Lakes means? What's that? No idea.
Never
Okay,
heard.
so I'll just quickly tell you what it is. The Great Lakes are basically a set of 5 lakes which are in the US. It's the border of US and Canada. Okay, so this line that you see over here is the border between US and Canada, and so these lakes: Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario. Okay, the name is not seen here. This is Lake Ontario, right? So between Lake Erie and Lake Ontario is where you have the Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls is over here. Okay, can you see my mouse pointer? That's where the Niagara Falls is. Okay, somewhere here is where Niagara Falls is. Okay, so Niagara Falls basically takes water from Lake Erie to Lake Ontario. Okay, so these are what are called the Great Lakes. Huge lake. So basically, if you stand on this side of the lake, you can't see the other end of the lake. So typically, when I say pond or lake, you think it's small. You can see the other end of that lake, right? But these lakes are so huge that basically ships run on them, right? So the city of Chicago that you see over here has a port where ships can transport from Chicago all the way. They move up here and so on, right? So it's a huge water body, but it's called a lake. Similar to what you asked, right? Caspian Sea, although it's a sea, it's called a lake. I'm sorry, although it's a lake, it's called a sea. Here, these are also as big as seas, but they are called lakes. Okay, so this is just some information. Okay, there's nothing fundamentally great about this. I just want you to know that there's such a thing as Great Lakes in the world. Okay, so these are massive surface water bodies, and they carry 24% of all the water that's in all the lakes in the world. 24% of it is in these 5 lakes in one country, US and Canada. Okay, so that's where we are going to. Okay, I was planning to stop much sooner, but it's taken me a little bit longer than I expected. That's okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is the rest of we have about 5-6 minutes left. I want some of you to talk about, a couple of you or maybe 3 of you to talk about how you think we can make this online learning a little bit better. What your ideas are. If you have any ideas, please let me know. I want to hear from you because I have my own ideas, but I would like to hear from you. Anybody?
Sir, can you place the grading pattern once again on the screen?
Oh, you want to see the grading pattern? Okay.
Yeah, actually I missed it, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's nothing much.
List. I was 20
Anyway, this I'm going to place this PPT on the Google Classroom, so you'll again get to see it. Okay, so don't worry about it. This is a minor point. Okay, don't worry about it.
Sir, not about this. I mean, like how marks are distributed, like 10 marks per assignment. Okay. That things like.
Yeah, this slide is going to be. This entire presentation is going to be on your Google Classroom. So this information you can find it from there. Okay, so I want to hear from some of you. How can we make online learning better? What do you think would work to make it better? Anybody? Somebody has to speak.
Polls.
What is that?
Polls. Last semester you conducted polls, no, sir?
Yeah.
And that will make it even better. More polls.
Okay, more polls. All right. Anybody else? see, this is something that I want to hear from you. I don't want to call out anybody to say something. You will have to unmute yourself and speak up. Come on, don't tell me you have no ideas.
Sir, this how come exams are gonna be, sir? Why was exam?
No. They'll be conducted online through a software called Talent Sprint. Okay, which basically locks your computer. You are only able to see your screen. If you try any tricks, the software immediately says this guy is trying to cheat or whatever. Okay, so that's the way the exams are going to be conducted. Okay.
Sir, can we write it through mobile, sir? Can we write in mobile?
I don't know what you mean by writing through mobile. How can you write through mobile?
Means like so we must have a laptop or a
No, I think it allows you to. No. See, the exam itself, you will write it on a piece of paper, scan it, and send it. But the exam will be visible on the screen, and you should. It will not allow you to check any other window. Once the exam starts, it will lock everything else and prevent you from opening any other window or going to any other tab. Only the question paper will be visible. Right? And it will turn on your camera so that... Yeah.
But if still people want to really do malpractice, they can have one more system nearby, one more thing.
You tell me what to do.
No, I was just telling.
Look, I'll tell you this. The surprise quizzes that I'm going to conduct, they are going to be conducted in the faith that you will all be honest. I cannot ensure you will all be honest, but I'm hoping you will all be honest, right? I'm fine with that. I believe that all of you are decent people. Don't disappoint yourself and me. Okay? You know, if you cheat, you will know. Even if I don't find out, you will know. Yeah, Purnachandra.
Is this theory kind of course or problematic?
See, it will not be a theory kind of course. Okay, it is a lot of empirical stuff. Okay, which might be a little bit frustrating at times. There's no theory as such, because you see all of these processes that I'm talking about, you cannot conduct them inside the lab. Okay, rainfall happens outside there. You know how much, it's uncertain, right? The same place, 1 year it receives 100 centimeters of rainfall, next year it receives 50 centimeters of rainfall. Lots of uncertainty is there. Okay, so how do you analyze a system where between 1 year and the next year there's 50% uncertainty or 100% uncertainty, right? So it will not be that we'll derive formulas based on physics, right? That is over. Fluid mechanics is done. This will be mostly empirically based, right? You will use historical data. Let us say I observe the rainfall at a certain location for the last 50 years. Okay. From that, I can predict what the next year's rainfall will be on average. Likelihood of next year's rainfall being, whatever, right? Suppose I have data from the last 50 years, which says Mumbai receives 1,500 millimeters of rainfall every year. I can say with a lot of confidence that next year, most likely, Mumbai will have rainfall of between 1,400 and 1,600 millimeters of rainfall. I can say that with a lot of confidence. It may not come true, but I'll have more confidence in saying that, right? So that's the kind of course it will be. Not every process will be understood through physics. A little bit of physics here and there will be there, but mostly it will be an empirical class. It will be empirical relationships, trying to understand these different processes. Okay, let's talk about how to make online learning better. Anybody has any ideas? So Chakradhar says, he says if we have more polls, that will be good. Okay, point taken. Anything else? Guys, come on, please talk up. Speak up.
Like we can have some kind of seminars or presentation.
Oh, absolutely. Those projects you will present. Those projects, you will do your projects and everybody will give short presentations, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. That's it. We won't have time for everybody to spend 20 minutes giving a presentation. You'll have to do your mini projects. See, last time the projects were done in groups of 2 or 3 people. I don't remember. I think it was 2 or 3 people in a group. But if we do group thing here, how do you work together? It's difficult. Already your bandwidth is you're using up your data to attend these classes. If you also have to work in a group, that will mean more of your data will get used up. So we are going to do individual projects. So everybody will present short 3 or 4 minutes per person. We'll have quick presentations and we'll keep moving. Everybody will present their work. So that's how the mini projects will be evaluated. Okay, so I think I'm out of time. I don't want to keep you longer. If anybody comes up with more ideas of making this online learning better, we'll hear them next class. First thing we'll do next class is listen to a few suggestions, and everybody think of some ways in which we can make it better. Okay, what are your problems? How do you think the class can address your problems? If you can come up with some ideas, that will be good. So next class, first thing we'll do is look at some possible improvements to online learning, and then we'll move on to with the course. All right. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Thank you very much. Please, all of you, be safe. We will meet tomorrow. All right. Take care.